You lied to me, game. The whole reason I said you were one of my favorite genres in the last episode clue was that you marketed yourself as a hack and slash. When I picture hack and slash, I picture something like Devil May Cry, or if we want to be thematic, Rusty Hearts or Dark Blood. Something similar to a beat-em-up that features weapon-based combat. If you want to loosen the definition of that a bit, sure, this game fits, but what it really is a Diablo clone. A loot-based dungeon crawler, but not really. What this isn't what I was expecting, but let's just see how it stacks up. This is the MMO Grinder, and it's time to look at ELOA. ELOA, standing for the mildly Englishy Elite Lord of Alliance, or simply pronounced ELOA, is an isometric perspective 3D game that features Diablo-style click-to-move and attack action. While it certainly seems to have an audience, as hunting down media for this game seemed to reveal, it definitely lacks that feel that publisher WebZen is trying to market. Some of you might already be looking at this footage and going, wait, that's not called ELOA, that's Inspirit Online. Yeah, about that. Inspirit Online is ELOA, but it isn't an official version of the game. For whatever reason, someone was chomping at the bit for ELOA to reach US and European shores, and localized a leaked closed beta version of the game. It's classified as an illegal private server, so if you want to play the developer-sanctioned and supported official release that isn't under legal risk of being shut down, you'll want to play the version I'm looking at. I can think of many other reasons the game might be shut down, but I don't want to spoil anything so soon. Perhaps the most immediately apparent thing is the amusing level of English all throughout this game. I mean, it isn't like we didn't expect it, the title is Elite Lord of Alliance after all, so there was bound to be some translation errors here and there. Those of you that get a chuckle out of poorly translated scripts and dialogues, enjoy picking apart the game to your heart's content. Our personal favorite bits of English have to be the trade system's wildly out-of-place formality, and when quitting the game, the phrase ELOA will end with a countdown timer. The game's visual design is all over the place. Individual models and effects look fine on their own, but when seen in the game all jumbled together at random and with little thought put into placement, it's obvious how fights devolve into random clusters of visual noise. It doesn't outright break the game, but it does make combat feel far stiffer, and when compared to games like Path of Exile, ELOA is clearly wanting, and Path of Exile is procedurally generated. Path of Exile surpasses this title in other Diablo-esque aspects as well, but we'll get into that later. It's a real shame that it seems that there wasn't much effort put into making the world feel coherent or have reason to it, which highlights another major issue. Areas tend to drag on for long periods of time, and they look incredibly similar, thus making the game devolve into a mindless slog from one forested area to the next, to a forested area set with ruins being the highlight, then you know you're in for a taxing experience. Where do we even begin with the music in this game? Things start off on a high note, almost immediately plummet, and remain well below average for the majority of the experience. ELOA is one of the most repetitive soundtracks that we've heard in a game, not made for the NES. Music is often looped on the same track for hours, sticking to one overarching section regardless of the area you're in, and to top it all off, the track itself can be incredibly repetitive. Someone on the team is pulling some sort of Nolan-level repetiception here, and it really needs to stop. It's so tedious that it makes it harder to focus on anything the game is actually doing. The sound design isn't much better, but for different reasons. All the sounds convey what they need to, but some are so underwhelming and others so overwhelming that the end result is a jumbled mess. On the whole, we'd have to say the sounds are average, if completely inconsistent, like having a sniper rifle shot sound like a BB gun, while the fully automatic mode sounds like someone went into a sewer with dual Uzis and fired into the walls. This odd design choice carries over to the game's emotes and voice work. Every emote in the game is accompanied by a random sound effect or music sting, and these sounds are incredibly silly, some even annoying if abused. In a normal game, the dance emote would just be a dance. Here it's a full-blown breakdance with some 90s-era toy commercial rap beat in the background that just so happens to play for other players nearby. Dancing off-beat in groups can render everyone nearby insane. The voice work is all over the place, mostly erring on the side of groan-worthy, especially the story narrator, who seems to be speaking with a slight accent and mild inflection, like a female Christopher Walken, and makes cutscenes impossible to take seriously.
The moment I saw Gantara lying there, I knew I wouldn't have another chance, and I attempted to deliver a fatal blow. Suddenly, someone attacked me from behind. Unprepared, I fell back onto the ground.
Character attacks are also voiced, but it's often incredibly hard to make out what anyone is actually saying. Bosses yell out their attacks ad nauseum to great frustration and annoyance, but it comes across in clear English, while characters are so hard to understand that I'm not sure they are speaking English. If they are, what they're saying certainly makes no sense. Currently our favorites are two different classes' pull attacks that sound like "messed up" and "no one cares," which we use to punctuate many situations in Discord. At the least, the game is grindstone memes now, but the game as a whole is way better off when the sounds are off and something more enjoyable is playing. We briefly touched on this already, but to state it again, this is not a hack-and-slash game, regardless of what the developer or publisher may say. This is a Diablo-style isometric RPG with the loot drops considerably scaled back and the grinding and tedium dialed up to 11. If you've played games like Path of Exile, not that I haven't mentioned that already, or any game with right-click to move, left-click to attack, hotkey your skills, you should have a decent handle on ELOA, though some hotkeys seem a bit off and might need readjusting. Note that some classes use their skills in the direction of the cursor relative to the character, while other classes will require the character to face in the desired attack direction. The combat itself feels incredibly dull. There's no real feeling of power except when steamrolling everything in underleveled areas, and new abilities don't provide a sense of progress as much as just another thing to keep track of. ELOA decided to implement stance dancing into all of its classes as well, meaning if you want to play a given class, make sure you're utilizing and upgrading all 3 weapons that class uses. So while you may get the class you want, the race may be another matter entirely. Currently the races are the Kartu, Liru, Sapiens, and Naru. Essentially, humans, really long-eared elves, dark elves, and female elves with shorter, pointier ears. Outside of class locking, there's nothing that sets any of them apart, so let's talk classes. The Blood Knight can act as a tank, but also has DPS stances. The Mage focuses on DPS and crowd control, the Psychic focuses on support abilities, and the Gunner focuses on various flavors of DPS and crowd control. The Assassin focuses on DPS and survivability. The Assassin class is the most racially locked, as it's only open to the Naru exclusively. Once a class is chosen, you'll be taken into the game's tutorial fight, which will showcase the individual stances of your class and get you familiarized with the controls. This section doesn't really represent what the actual game will be like in terms of theme, soundtrack, or quest design. From here you'll be dumped into the game proper, where you'll be introduced to pets and mounts, crafting, and of course questing. This game suffers from some of the most bog-standard quest templates I've ever found in MMOs. Go here, kill that. Take this thing, give it to that guy. Bad shit happened, go kill monsters. It's that errand boy kind of questing, where you do anything anyone tells you to, no matter what the task or how seemingly counterproductive it is. After grinding your ass off to earn the trust of a native tribe, one of the first things you see in that tribe's village is a missionary who's miffed that they don't follow his religion. He asks you to set off explosives and poison their water supply, and you don't have the option of telling the guy to get bent. You need that XP to advance. Enemy grinding won't cut it. Most progression comes from quest completion. This section leads immediately to an area where you're tasked with working for absolutely awful logging companies who go around sabotaging each other, killing off noble creatures, and generally treating your character like garbage. Anytime you think they're going to get some form of comeuppance, you're forced to fix their situation just so they can learn nothing from it. I can't stand games like this. I'd honestly prefer an illusion of choice, where I'm given several options that ultimately lead to the same outcome, to being the gopher of every asshole NPC that I wander by. Compared to such poor quest design, the dungeons seem even more phoned in. Half the time the dungeons are so much like the standard questing areas you won't even realize you're in one until the portal to leave the dungeon pops up, which speaks volumes of just how forgettable they are. It certainly says something when accepting a dungeon quest feels and plays out exactly like everything else you've already been doing for the past hour, with the exception of likely facing off against an attack-spamming, stun-locking boss. Blurring the line even further is the monster card system, which will task you with killing one monster of each type to fill out pages of the Sadist Scrapbook for rewards that mostly involve leveling your pets. The issue here is that these pages will include monsters from questing areas and dungeons with no distinction between the two, and often no real way to tell which zone each monster's in outside of full chapters. In order to obtain credit for a given card, you'll also need to ensure that you are the last hit. This game does not care if you did most of the damage or were the first one to attack. If someone comes along and gets the death blow, they get credit and you get nothing. There's a fast travel system built into the game to lessen the tedium of walking from one zone to another. Yet, with the exception of teleporting to towns or your safe position, you'll be charged a fee, which can be annoying if you've emptied your bank. You also won't teleport to your destination straight out, but instead need to head to a flying carrier that acts as a base of operations for your group and teleport from there. Alternatively, there is a home point ability which will teleport you to any area you find a home point in, including the cruiser itself. The pets within the game are rather interesting and give various benefits to the player that activates them. As you grind and kill monsters, there's a chance that they'll drop an egg of themselves on the ground that can be used in your inventory to hatch. Once you have a pet, you can open the pet window by pressing L and check all the pets you have. From here, you can check the pets that can be used as mounts and what stat bonuses they'll give you. You can then choose to grow the pets to increase their bonuses by feeding them other pets, which is amusingly gruesome. You can evolve or combine your pets from here as well, but we don't really know what this is actually doing, as it's not explained well, though we assume that evolving a pet will allow that pet to surpass the level 10 cap. Finally, we have the crafting system, which we really don't need to say much about. It's the usual MMO system, with the exception that you have to find crafting NPCs to actually craft and upgrade equipment. Equipment that you'll be replacing constantly anyway. You've seen this crafting system before, and little effort was made into making it feel unique. This game is absolutely infested with farm bots, multi-boxers, and gold spammers to such a degree that in the early town, they actually outnumber the legitimate player base. It's incredibly fascinating to see just how completely drowned the community is in comparison. It lessens as the game goes on, but it's a disheartening sight to behold when first logging in. Though I do want to say, why does this game even use End Protect if it so clearly doesn't work? These bots are on such a massive scale that it becomes laughable to even think that there is a hack guard. We've seen these security programs before and they almost never work. Mostly they just serve to hinder actual players from playing their game. In a more well-managed game, the number of bots is usually in flux but kept at low levels. Here the bots just seem like an endless wave. We watched more and more flood into the game's world by the second. The worst thing about this bot infestation is that there's physically no way to report the bots or gold spammers. Any cleanup will fall solely on the developer's shoulders. This means that you can enjoy lots of kill stealing from farming bots while you're trying to fill in your scrapbook or get loot from specific monsters. The community that's present within the game isn't anything special. They aren't the worst we've experienced, choosing instead to focus on the adage of FYGM rather than just being terrible people. Mostly your interactions with the community will be people wanting to join your guild or party on the spot for grind groups, rather than just trying to form one themselves or even ask for specific help with a task. You know, the kind of people that ask repeatedly if you need help killing a boss while you're fighting it, rather than just helping you because they aren't in your party. Speaking of parties, the party system is straightforward and can be easily accessed from the Stalker list, aka the game's non-prompting, no-approval-needed friends list. There are some key benefits to being in a party that make it far more enjoyable, with the largest being reducing the ludicrous levels of grind and combat. Another benefit is that if you can get it to work properly, the party skills system, which can be used after filling a meter while fighting a boss, can do incredible damage. The downside is that these party skills are usually very situational, with the one that we experience the most being a long-lasting laser shot that bosses just simply seem to shrug off. The Cash Shop is one of those special adventures, with some good ideas, some oddities, and of course that debatable element of pay-to-win that we've come to expect from Asian MMOs. The game fortunately uses a simple 1-for-100 exchange rate, making determining value and cost simple, though you do get bonus points for buying in bulk. You'll also find the usual login rewards, and a surprising logged-on time reward that comes with an amusing warning about remembering not to play for too long because it's bad for your health and society. As part of this odd nature, the game actually has two kinds of subscription: Premium, the cheaper of the two, and VIP. Both give the same benefits but in differing amounts, with Premium giving 30% Monster Hunt experience, 10% Monster Hunt Gold, and Honor Point gains, while VIP will give 40 and 15 respectively. The price tag is the usual MMO sub affair, with Premium costing 1,000 W coins and VIP coming at 1,500, though since there's no 1,500 W coins tier, you'll need to go up to the $20 tier or make 2 transactions of 10 and 5 respectively. You'll find the usual staples here as well: experience boosters, coin boosters, and the like, along with cosmetic items. Here though we come to a bit of an oddity, as none of the cosmetics can be previewed before buying, and they're all locked specifically to classes, meaning that you'll have to search for the specific cosmetics for any given class. You can find pets in the store as well, though these come in the form of lucky boxes, so don't go in expecting to get the exact pet you might want or need. Coming around to the maybe it's pay to win, there are stat boosters that can be purchased within the cash shop, and though they're cheap, they can't be used in PvP battlefields. They'll still give you an advantage over others for just a bit of cash. It's disheartening to see this in any game, but here it just feels like more of a cash grab than it already is, since the game's quality and tedium feel more like manipulating you into paying for some sort of assistance. Yeah, why does it feel I'm still barrel scraping after doing this episode? Like, this is a fairly new thing, right? Yet, I didn't feel like I was looking at anything that anyone would be interested in. I think this game has an audience. It wouldn't have had people so openly making a private server for it if it didn't. But those of us who want a Diablo-style game might be better off sticking to Path of Exile. Here's my final rating. One of the most unique features in this game comes in the form of the multiple stances. Regardless of your stance on this feature, it's interesting enough to be able to swap weapons on the fly and decide what loadout and weapon will work best for any situation. Those who enjoy collecting, combining, and upgrading pets might get a kick out of the pet collection system. Even if it's not the fastest and most reliable system, it's there for those who like to catch 'em all. Gameplay is easy enough to understand, and even with the pile of skills heaped upon you, you'll likely only need to make constant use of a handful. If you know how to click, you'll know how to fight for the most part. The standards are in place in Cash Shop land. Cosmetics are here for those who want a different look, and there are, of course, plenty of boosters to help things along. I can't talk enough about the repetitive nature of the game without sounding repetitive myself, but everything from the combat to the questing to the music being used in multiple areas with little change makes the whole game feel like more the same. Bots are everywhere in this game, and with no simplistic and reliable system to report and block these bots, they can be a real hindrance. Lastly, nothing about this game seems to be breaking any sort of mold. It's a formula that's been done better and more intriguingly in other games in the genre, and I can't see what would drive you to this one over others like it. You may be better off checking out something else for your loot collecting, dungeon grinding fix. Next time, derivative design might seem like the order of the day, but rest assured it'll feel like a world of difference. Sorry, we still doing these? Does, anyone even click on this? You skipped as soon as the credits were over, didn't you? Of course, if you did, you wouldn't be hearing this, so thanks for sticking around. Left window takes you to Dragamon Hunter if you want to see another case of derivative formulas done weekly. That's weak as in not strong. And for something far more relevant and interesting, the side quest preview on Blade and Soul is on the right there. Remember to check out MMOGrinder.net. You know, that annoying card that popped up in the corner when the credits started? To check out our real, unfiltered opinions on the games we review. You know, not like this one wasn't obvious. Yes, I said we, and it's not me using the royal we or failing to hide dissociative identity disorder. There's a core group of us who play these games, script them together, and try to convince each other that we aren't suffering in deep, unimaginable ways. Fun for everyone, really. That sounds like a thing. Find out more about us at the forum address. No, I can't annotate link it. YouTube is really stupid like that. What I can annotate link is the link that you see before you, as Patreon supporter Michael Foy is featured in the video that he wishes to plug alongside his favorite reviewer as they look over the NES game Legend of Kage. Am I the only one with a circle of friends that pronounced that Legend of Cage when I was in elementary school? Ah shit, that was like back in the 80s, like nearly 30 years ago for me. Forget I said anything about that. Just click the top link if and you want, and you're still listening to me ramble. I'm done now. The moment I saw Gantara lying there, I knew I wouldn't have another chance and attempted to deliver a fatal blow. Suddenly, someone attacked me from behind. Unprepared, I fell back onto the ground.
You dare challenge Gontrada, Gurren! Take care of your end!
Take care of your end?
Long time no see, Greenhorn.
Hey, giant ogre, check your ass!